Hey everyone. So the update just hit and I thought I would not talk about that and instead just go over another map talk. So today we're dealing with CP Cargo A3, a very early alpha stage map made by Chojje, the guy who makes Snake Water, and there's no real feedback on it, so I thought I'd give some. And you probably haven't seen this before, it's very new, so as you can see, like all the textures here, they look awful, and there was lobby here. And there's a lot of stuff like that's very clearly not polished, right? Like you can't go out here, and that's not terribly obvious. But that's kind of stuff that will all be fixed eventually. Pretty sure you can't stand up on this high ground. So yeah, it's very much unpolished, and that's okay because it's an alpha map, right? So no biggie. But I thought I'd talk about it. So let's just start out by actually looking at last, and I think I'm going to talk about this as in relation to where would you hold and where would you push, because that usually gives you a very good idea of how a map will play. Most of the maps I've been talking about so far have been really quite polished, and they have good flow to them and they are playable. This could be completely unplayable as far as I know. It's very difficult when you get a completely new map and you just don't know about it. So yeah, let's just look at last here. So you see last we have the point pretty far forward, right? And then we have this entrance right here where you can kind of see in, but you have to go to the sides here in order to actually be in. There's a drop down here, and then there's a small ramp here, which he added pretty lately. And then the spawn points are all the way back here, right? So you spawn here and you'd have to jump over here to contest it, and then there's a spawn over here, which is actually on the low ground for it, so it'd probably not be the best way to contest it. And then there's these two walls, so it's a very claustrophobic last point once you start standing on it. So I think that's pretty interesting. So this whole setup, first of all, it's a very open map, or a very open last point. And then there's just like these few angles that could really be problematic, right? Like, so if we think about where would we want to hold, right? So first of all, we obviously want to avoid this massive sniper sideline, right? Everything's very open and you have very good view from here. It's on the low ground, but as far as sniper goes, that's not important, right? And then you can have your own team standing up here, and they could obviously support a guy standing down there. So we want to stay out of this sideline, at least from a medic perspective, and probably everyone else as well, right? So it's either, right, like, so pretty much the only place you can stand are like over here as a medic and as a demo, right? You can contest the point just fine, but you want to be really far in. So actually what I think this last point encourages is to actually stand really far forward, right? Because you want to just deny this. So if you actually hold here, like, so you have the medic against this wall, right? So now it's just only if they peek in here. That's really fine, they have to peek. Now to look at the medic, right? And then you have like a soldier on this high ground here, spam down this perfectly fine, and then you have like a demo sticking this, sticking that, right? So it might just encourage teams to hold really far forward, and that's usually a good thing, right? But I've sort of come to realize that all maps that have really large last points tend to have a lot of problems with last, right? Like Reckoner is probably the best example of this, where last, there's no real good place to hold on it except for like one kind of in the corner, but just because the last point is so big, it means that people can kite an Uber for so long, and they have the advantage of the spawn being right there, so they can hide in it and they will get spawners way faster there than the attacking team. So just because the last point is so big, you can kite. So the question is, is this big enough that you can just kite Ubers forever, or are these places to hold just so bad that you actually need to hold forward, which would actually speed up the map quite significantly? Maybe. There's this sort of side entrance over here. Not really an entrance, but this like room here, and I haven't quite figured out what the purpose of it is. Because you could have your medic over here and then hold far forward here with other people on the high ground. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this is. This is a very small door, so it's not really much of a flank route. And this is a very small door too, so even if the enemy gets in here, like a scout or a soldier or something, makes it their way into this room, it's so easy to actually cut them off that it almost seems pointless. There's a wall here that kind of was added lately in the latest version, I think, and then that will disrupt some sightlines, but yeah, I'm not too sure. This is a very weird last point to me, and kind of like Reckoner, there's a very open connection between the lobby area and the last point. And this lobby area is pretty decent, I think. It has seen a lot of changes. You know, so obviously right out here, that's the second point, and then you can hold in here. You know, so I've been thinking, you know, if last point is so bad to hold, maybe you just want to hold forward here. And once again, if you encourage teams to actually hold forward, that will actually tend to boost the team, or boost the match by making everything much more fast-paced and allowing things to go faster. Right, but okay, so we see this entrance right here, very small door, kind of off to the side, but if anyone's holding up here, that should be very easy to disrupt. Right, if they want to get a sideline, they have to actually go down here, so yeah, maybe you don't want to go down here. So that's definitely a choke point. Like corners and turns are really good for creating choke points that are usually good and navigable. And then of course you have over here, you know, there's a bit of a sightline to down there, so like if you go too far forward, maybe a sniper can see you, but it's hard for a sniper to actually gain ground, I think, otherwise, so I don't think that's a big issue. I don't think you'd go sniper to break this stalemate, for instance, or to break this hold. Right, so this just seems pretty good, especially considering that to actually get up to this high ground and contest them, and an attacking team would have to go up this ramp, right, or up here and then jump across. Right, but then they'd land here, and then you can spam them right away. So it actually seems like a forward hold is pretty good. The only problem I can see is that, right, there's this entrance right here. Right, so this entrance, you know, they can just run right through. So, you know, presumably you would have like a soldier holding over here, but a scout can just run past really fast. So that could be very problematic. Right, so because if a scout makes it through here, he's almost at the point already. And you'd actually have to send people back, and then, right, you'd send people here back to contest it, and then they're out of position, and the attacking team just go in here and take a lobby. Right, so if anything, this might be dynamic. Maybe you just have to like place a soldier on this high ground back here or something. I have a scout here. Just trust him to be able to pick up any slack, you know, because if anyone makes it through here, they would presumably take some damage. And then a scout can take an easy 1v1, maybe. But yeah, this whole area, it seems like he wants to encourage people to actually hold far forward. Right, and then when you push out here to second, right, like, so how would you push out into second? And this is kind of where this map runs into problems, I think, because this second point, it used to have way bigger height advantages and disadvantages, but the height differences are still very big. Right, so obviously you have scouts who can jump over here just fine, right? Like, so that's easy. That's kind of like Spire. Spire, of course, being one of the harder points to push out on, just because there's, you know, the medic can't follow you there, right? So soldiers have to rocket jump, scouts have to double jump. The medic would be kind of stuck over there. He'd have to like walk down here to the low ground, then up here. Right, so you know, it's just if a team is holding out here and you want to push out from last, right, like, and people hold up on this crate, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to actually like get people onto this point with medic support, and that could be a big issue, you know, because the defending team has the height advantage, and you obviously don't want to go through this door because that high ground covers this perfectly. And if you go out here, once again, that is some high ground, and you can't like easily make it over here, and this is not like particularly good for contesting this either. Right, and then of course you have to cover this entrance right here. You don't want scouts to jump behind. So, right, if you push out here, you have to almost also have someone go over here. And like this thing seems pretty weird. It's almost unusable, but yeah. So you know it means that anyone holding here cannot hold this because they would be inside that one. So you almost have to like send someone down here. And yeah, it could be troublesome. Right, because there's this whole entrance that you'd have to hold, and of course if you don't send anyone this way, you know, they can run this way and go in for a back cap too. So I think it's going to be pretty difficult to actually push out. It reminds me a little bit of Sunshine, you know, just because of that there's that high ground you have to overcome. And there's also seems to be very few points of attack, and seems to be a real power position over here where you can just really abuse high ground. You know, and even if you get knocked down, you can still just like walk over here, and now you're still on the high ground. And you're also threatening a back cap. So it seems like it's going to be very difficult to push out here and prevent a back cap. Right. But, like, speaking of holding this point, right, like, I think the second point here is, you know, because we have this high ground second point, you know, there's very few areas where you can actually push it from. This whole entrance is pretty good, but the other ones are questionable at best. So you have this whole room right here, right? So that just leads to basically nowhere. It's just like an alternate route to go in here, and now you're on the complete low ground. Anything, if you stand up here, you can spam this door so easily, and if you walk through this door, you know, you'd still have to like walk over here, under here, and then up here and over here, and now you're in a good position, right? So like that's a really long walk, right, just to be useful. So that's a bad door, you know, that's like a flank door, and probably more for the attackers than the defenders. And then we have this side over here, so we have, it's very choky, and you're still on the low ground. And he did add ramps right here that you can actually walk up of. But if you want to push this way, first of all, right, this pillar is very large and thick. It takes up a lot of space, so this is a choke right here, this is a choke right here, and then once you walk past here, this is still a choke, and that is also a choke. So it's very choky, and it's on the low ground. So if you don't have Uber, you know, this is completely pointless to actually push here. You know, you're going to lose. Absolutely for sure, you know, because soldiers and demos will just spam you on the low ground, and then you have to like jump soldiers up onto the high ground, and then like a scout can just deny you so hard. So that's a pretty bad pushing pathway. Whereas this one is pretty okay, actually. Like this route right here is definitely where you'd see the majority of pushes coming from. You know, you walk in here, this wall blocks some sight lines, so you feel relatively safe. And then, of course, if they hold on this high ground right here, you know, this is a very small space, and all of this low ground here is a pretty big space, so it'd be easy for like a demo or a soldier sort of jump up and do spam down here, and then that would presumably like knock the soldier down a bit, and then he's down here, and then he'd have to like jump up again. So this crate is pretty easily contestable from this low ground, and then you can walk up this ramp, which is pretty thick, you know, pretty wide, and then you can walk up here, and you'd actually have the high ground, you know, and have the power position that I talked about before, you know, and you can walk down onto the point. So this entrance seems pretty good. You could send people through here, maybe, I'm not sure. Right, but you know, I don't see people actually using any other pathway than this. So, you know, that could be an issue if you just like pack all your defense over onto one side and just shift all of the action. Like, I really do think somehow you need to make this route more attractive. It really does help that this entrance is here where you can go into last and wrap behind really easily. You know, that makes it really good for scouts to at least go behind here, but I don't see like a combo ever going through here. So yeah, like just the high ground disadvantage here, you know, it's really severe, and it almost reminds me of Badlands Spire in the way that it's so hard to actually access. You know, there are ramps here, but it's just the ramps are not really from good sides. So, you know, if you walk up this ramp, you're right next to this wall, so like you can't walk up here without getting spammed from over there. Like they'll just shoot the wall. They don't even have to shoot at the ground, just the wall. So very difficult to actually push in, but yeah, this could work. I kind of feel like the point would become a death zone at some point, where you have a team over here spamming up there, and then you have a team over here and over here kind of spamming it. But then you are threatening to go behind. So I think it's going to be very easy for scouts to go behind on this map, especially when people don't really know it. Right, and then we look at how you would push from second into mid. Right, so maybe if we just go this way, right, you know, let's just talk about the geography of mid first. You know, that should give us some idea of how they would hold. Usually it's better to look at where you would hold from, because that would make you realize where you can't actually push from. Right, so you have these floaty things here. You know, this is alpha, so you know, they're just magic. Right, so you can have like one soldier up here. Right, so basically like the very safe point to hold, right, would be like have a medic in here, and then you have like a soldier and demo up in this high ground. You know, you can have like a soldier up here spamming it, and then like maybe someone slightly forward here, like scouts, just watching this. Right, so that would be very safe. And then if that's where people hold, I don't think it matters too much where you push from. I do have this flank angle right here where you can kind of walk behind this whole crate here that just blocks sight lines. So if you stand here, you won't really get spammed. Right, so that means you can go all the way over here, and then you're in here, and then boom, you're contesting them. Right, so that's fine. So I actually think like holding far back like this is something you don't want to do unless you have an uber disadvantage. So instead, once again, I think Chojje is trying to encourage teams to actually hold forward. Right, so you could have a medic standing on the midpoint here, and then you have maybe a soldier up here, looking here, spamming that. If people push through here, that's very easy to spam. This is a bad place to push from. The height disadvantage is really severe, and this is also a very small choke. So even if that gets blocked up in any way, if anyone stands in this crate, they can completely block everything. So like a medic here, a soldier on both of these high grounds right here, and then like a demo that stickies this. You can stick it up here, stick it up here, stick it up here. Right, like a lot of options that you can actually sticky. Right, and then you have like a scout on this high ground, scout over here. That seems to be like how you'd want to hold this mid. So with that in mind, where do you want to push from? Alright, so let's see. You have some options. You can go in through here, and then this is a very scary small door. Alright, so you probably don't want to go in there. You have the soldier up here, and then you have the demo pretty far forward. He can sticky that, go forward and sticky that. Alright, so I think this door is probably the biggest door you can go through that doesn't leave you on the low ground. So I think this would be where you would push from. Right, and there's actually a medkit here too that you could have used, so you can take some damage, take the medkit, and then you're ready to go through here and split up and go through this door here. I actually think this door should be bigger, to be honest. Seems like it makes it way harder to actually push in, but it's presumably also blocking some sight lines, so there's probably a reason for it being here. Yeah. Man. Like this door, it's pretty small, and if there's a soldier up there, he can annoy you. Presumably he'd be pushed back by like sticky spam or something at some point. And then he'd like have to hold back here with the medic, but this is still a pretty good position. He's still in a very good position to like jump up on the high ground, jump over here on this wall. Yeah. It's completely fine. And medic seems pretty unpressured. Like, the only issue here is that if medic's standing here and they have a sniper, this sight line exists. You'd have to like go back here. But then he couldn't heal a soldier up there. But yeah, still, this seems to be the holding position. Just my educated guess. I haven't played it once, I should probably mention. So this is all guesswork. Right. And then, yeah, so that's how the flow of the map would go, in my opinion, right? So, I think you'd run into a big hurdle trying to push 2nd. And push out of last. I think that's going to be the big issue. And then last is pretty interesting, where I think it's actually very pushable. There used to be a door here, which was awful. So they could just really walk out of spawn and then go in here. Oh, it's just nothing here now. Okay. Yeah, but now the spawns are pretty far away and kind of on the low ground. You don't walk out of spawn and contest last very well. So perhaps that's pretty fine. And it caps semi-fast. Alright, but let's look at how the mid fight would work. Alright, let's actually roll out. Like on demo. Let's hope I don't mess this up. Actually, chains hurt me. So, if you type in too much of a number, it will actually just kill you. Okay, I didn't mess it up. Alright, so you roll out here. Take this, and then presumably go in here somewhere. You could also go up this one. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright. And there's a medkit back here if you need it. Alright. Where would demo want to be on this mid? So demos usually are okay with the low ground. If you stand here, you can get blindsided from this side, and you can't see them coming. So there's some broken sight lines here, but that's nice. So maybe you don't want to be his demo. Maybe you want to see if you can get onto the point here and spam these entrances. Seems very powerful, and obviously you want to contest that. Yeah, and also, like, it's kind of weird. Like, if you stand up on this high ground right here, you're obviously contesting the point, but in mid-fights, contesting point is not really that important. You're more interested in having a good position, and you're right next to a wall here, so any splash will just hit you, and this is a pretty small doorway, so being up here is actually pretty bad. Like, it's not terrible, because there is still high ground, but, you have to be very wary of spam, and I think we can expect soldiers and scouts especially. Like, scouts will just stand on these things on the middle. Like, they will love that so much. Like a scout here is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. You might actually even be able to run sniper to mid and abuse this sight line right there. Not sure. But yeah, like scouts up on this. This is like, can you imagine? Just the scout, he can pretty much see everything, and then he goes up here, and then now he can literally see everything. So scouts up here, it's going to be a big issue. Like, so as a demo, you'll probably want to contest that as much as you possibly can. And then, like, what would a soldier do here? Like, a soldier would presumably jump over onto the enemy crate here to contest that, right? Because now you have some high ground, and you can see everything, and then you can just like jump in onto them and spam them and jump up on this crate, and then over here and keep spamming down as a soldier. So yeah, soldiers have quite a lot of options here, and if you want, well, once again, it feels like you want to go forward as a team, otherwise you're going to get punished really hard, right? Because if you go forward and stand in that, if you don't go forward, the enemy team will just jump these and spam you in these doors here. You can't stand there. So yeah, I actually kind of like this mid. It's possible for like a soldier to come to mid and then jump over here, and now he's in a blind angle, and then he can jump up here onto this high ground and spam down here, go behind. Right, so I think soldier is actually completely fine on this mid. Only issue might be that scouts are a bit too obnoxious over here, but obviously they can't deal with the soldier all the way over there. So yeah, I actually think this mid is quite okay. That would be my guess. This mid is going to be quite nice, and then if you roll people here and just like wipe them out, you'll get an easy second, and then last. Yeah. Should be someone somewhat decent to push, right? Because if you want to push into last, you're very close to the point, and this is where you'd probably be forced to Uber due to snipers and sticky traps and spam, and then there's a very short walk for a soldier here to here, and now you're putting pressure on the point, and that will presumably make them go forward. I do think the Zlatos could use a little more high ground. You have this wall with high ground, that's some pretty bad high ground, and then these two walls here. Basically all the high ground is walls, so yeah, some kind of more high ground. I do like this kind of slope here. I think it's interesting that if you want to walk in and milk your Uber, this is where you go, right? But I'm pretty sure you can see it from that spawn, so risky business. But yeah, so that's Cargo Alpha, Alpha 3. I think it looks pretty promising. Second point is questionable. I think that's where most of the problems will arise. You can't make this up as a medic either. So yeah, it should be difficult to actually push second from either side. I think it's a bit too limiting. You can only really go from the right side over here when you go in. But like the points, like from if you just look at it from like a DM point perspective, right? Like there's a ton of high ground that you can abuse. There's a ton of broken sight lines. Like you can hide here, right, as a soldier, and then come in, boom, you're in that face. And now you're standing on the wall too, right? So there's a bunch of like high ground you can abuse, and that's usually the most important part. And there's a bunch of sight lines where you can't see everything coming, which causes people to overextend, and you can hide different places. So I actually have a feeling that this should be a pretty well-flowing map, as long as second gets I don't know, a slight rework. I feel like this whole flank area should be a lot better. Like if you could somehow, I don't know, enable teams to actually be on like higher ground here, or like I don't want this to actually be lowered, right? Because that's kind of the point at this point. It's kind of like a spire, right? Gollywash has this kind of point where it's kind of up. We can't cap it from below though, and then Badlands obviously has the spire. You know, so I don't think that's fundamentally flawed. I just think that pushing into it is a bit too good. And, you know, like on Badlands, you can't actually hold on Spire very well, you know, but you can hold on this one pretty well. So, like, the thing I will say here, though, if you hold on this, right, like, say you hold here, and then you actually, at some point, take too much damage, and you retreat back to here, right? Now your medic is stuck here and can't actually go back over. So, the medic would have to jump down and then go up here before he can support his team from over here. So, you know, maybe it works out in the end that just because you can push people off the Spire and then the medic can't go back over there. But and the demo would also have to jump over there. Right, and demos don't like to jump. Soldiers are fine with it though. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts on it. I'm looking forward to it. You know, you can tell it's a good map maker that made this. You know, like the ammo picks up and health pickups are really good. You know, simple stuff like this right here is a terrible position to be in. So there's a medium med kit and an ammo kit, and this right here is a pretty damn good position. So there's a small ammo and med kit, right? So you get kind of rewarded for being in poor places. You know, like nobody would ever be here if there wasn't a med kit, but you know, you spread out the action by putting the med kits here, so you can tell that Chojje knows what he's doing. I like this kind of small stuff. But yeah, that will be it. Enjoy the update, unless you play pubs, in which case that's probably ruined for you. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's it. Bye bye. Let me know what you think.